Hi, it's David Gaume in the Stained Glass Studio, and on this video we're going to talk about this 1/4 inch outer bar for your stained glass project. We're going to show how we do it, and it's just as important, we're going to show why we do it. This is a piece of 1/4 inch outer bar. I call it 1/4 inch, although it's a little bit wider than 1/4 of an inch. I get this from my regular stained glass distributor. I'm really not sure where else to get it. You can buy it from us directly, but you don't want to get it shipped to you from us. However, I'm pretty sure Delphi carries it. It's not called 1/4 inch, but it's just a little bit wider than 1/4 of an inch. Now, you see how it's folded up there on the end? Well, it comes up and comes up to this point, and then it's folded down around and then back and then down again, and so it causes the piece of metal to have two different angles inside of it, and that makes it stout, makes it really strong. It's strong this way and it's a little bit weaker this way, but when you solder it on, it's stronger. Okay, so now let's go over here and I'm going to show you how we put it on a window. Here is a piece of stained glass that Jeannie just finished up. It's a nativity scene. Hey, Christmas will be here in a couple of months, so we thought we ought to have a couple on hand. People ask me, why don't you cut your metal at a 45-degree angle and put it together? And so this is part of the instruction and the why that I want to show you. See, I've already cut these two pieces at a 45 degree. Now at the other end, I've set it up as a butt joint. See, so it comes up to here and then butts up against this. And I have to tell you, it's a lot faster to do this method than it is to do this method. It's a lot more fiddly to do this 45-degree angle. And not only that, if I had had to put another 45-degree angle down on this end, I would have had to have cut it off and then cut off this end and had it at a 45 and then put them together and then see how much more I had to cut off and so forth. I actually had to do the same thing here, except that I didn't have to cut it off. I just tapped it a little bit because the other end's just floating free. So anyhow, now I'm going to solder both of these. Now, you remember when I was telling you about how they make these and they fold the metal around? Well, when they're doing that, they put a lot of oil on their equipment so that the equipment doesn't get dull. And as a result of that, there's a lot of oil. So when you put your flux on, you want to brush and brush and brush and brush and brush. Same thing on this end. I'm going to do the same thing. Got quite a bit of flux on there. Now let's see if my iron is warm enough yet. You want a fully warmed up iron when you're doing your edges. Now, as you solder this edge, you want to get right on top of the zinc and get your iron right onto it and heat it up, and then add a little bit of solder. And you see, then I have to get down here and get into this foil that's running into it. Okay, you see, it's not as pretty as it will be when it's heated up properly. Now, you see how this solder goes up to here, and over here it's only this far? Well, I want it to be the same amount in both directions, so I add a little bit more. Just gives it a little more uniformity. Okay, let's see, I guess I'll finish this. Okay, so now that's that side. Now let's go over to this corner. We're going to do the same thing. I guess I should explain first that I put this edge on first, and then I put the bottom edge. And there's a reason. You see, when you look here, right here, you can see into that hole. But from this side, you can't. And that's why you want to put your outside edges on before the top and bottom, because that'll be covered over. Now, in a moment, I'll show you how we fill that hole. Okay, so now I've got that, and I've got it soldered up. You see, I had to go up a ways, even though the joint is right here. But if I didn't put some up that way, then it wouldn't have that nice uniform L shape. Okay, so that's it for right now. Now I'm going to, I might as well finish soldering these. You see, this edge has to be soldered on to the zinc all the way across. And as I come along, I don't worry too much about how much flux I have on the foil, but I do worry about how much I have on the zinc. So I want to get a lot on there. Now, what I like to do is I bring the solder along up to the zinc and then pull off. If you get a big lump on top of the zinc, the only way to fix it is to remove the zinc and start over again. So I like to get just a little bit up on top, and that gives us some strength to hold on to both the zinc and the window. Now this I have to start up here. It's a little bit flat right there. You see how there's a little bit of foil sticking up right there? There's two ways to solve that. Either I can take an X-Acto knife and peel it off, or I can just cover it with some solder. I'm going to choose to cut it with an X-Acto knife. Okay, that's pretty good. Now then, I need to do the piece on top, and I've already marked the length here. I want to make sure that this is really, so what I can do, see, I put it in between the two pieces and then I mark where it needs to be cut off. That is so much faster than having to fiddle around with this 45-degree angle. If I was doing a 45, I would have already had to have cut this one before I even started soldering, and then on this one I'd have to cut it, and the idea of mental gymnastics is just so much more difficult. So what I'm going to do now is go over to my little saw. This is a Jarmac brand saw. When I got it, wholesale on it was $120. Now, you can go to Harbor Freight Tools and order their Mighty Might saw, and you'll have the same thing that this is, except it's red, and you have to get a different blade. Great value for only about 30 or 40 bucks. I'll put a link in it down in the description, because you can't get them at the store. You have to order them online. All right, now here is this piece of metal, and it fits right over the edge of the window, and this piece and this piece are going wild. We don't care about them right now. We're only worried about these two ends because we'll cut those off later. Now, sometimes, like in this instance right here, you see how there's a kind of a big spot where there's no additional reinforcement. And so the trick here is you take this metal and you bend it in a little bit of a bow. See that? It's kind of bowed now. Now when I put it on, you see on this end it's up tight, and on this end it's kind of sprung out. So when I pull it, that bow will mean that the metal is going to try and force itself against the window. Now, here's when having these horseshoe nails really comes in handy for you. You know, the horseshoe nails have a flat spot and a rounded spot. Now what you want to do is put the flat spot directly up against your metal, and make sure that you've got one on the other side as well. Now as you nail that in, there's a curved part, and it'll go in and force the nail to be tight up against this piece of wood. Here's the thing. Make sure that as you hold your nail, you've got your fingers covering up the whole nail, because if you miss while you're hitting the nail, you'll hit your finger, your thumb or your finger, and your finger will stop hurting a lot sooner than the glass will repair itself. The glass won't heal, but your finger will. And that is something that you must remember at all times. Everybody that's been building windows for some period of time will tell you that it's easy to accidentally hit their glass. Okay, so see now on this end, see I'm pulling that right up tight. And then I always like to, get it up tight to this edge. And see, I have a little bit of foil peeking out there, and I'll just trim that off with the X-Acto knife as well. So now what I can do is I can solder these, and I don't worry about that wild edge. So I'll go ahead and solder these right up, and then I'll come back and show you what we do to cut it. Hi, it's David Gaume, and this is Tech Tip Thursday. I've just soldered this side of the metal, and I've attached all of these edges to the metal as well. The other side has not been soldered, and I'm going to move it first. Now you see what I'm doing here is I'm taking the nails off, and I wiggle them side to side. I never want to pull this one towards the glass because it might crack the glass, but if I move it side to side, then there's plenty of room and it doesn't run into the glass. So anyhow, those are my nails, and I've taken them all off. Now the other side needs to be soldered, and that's what the other side looks like. However, I don't want to solder just yet. I've soldered one side. Now I want to take the window over to my saw. Now, when I'm doing a very large window, then I don't leave these pieces to go wild. I cut them off so that I won't have a problem, and I won't have to pick the window up. But for small windows, I'm going to show you just the best trick. This is how we align a window. So I've got the blade running, and I take the window itself and I put it right up against the blade. And you see, I run the blade right along the zinc, and that gives me a guide. See how slick that is? Now I'm going to solder the whole thing on the back. But before I do that, I want to show you how we go about filling holes. I don't fill holes very often, can you tell? All right, so I've got this board with two other boards perpendicular to it and a slot in the middle. So when I take that, I can just put it right on here, and you'll see that I've got the hole right there, and it holds it up for me. Just get some flux on there. Now it's filled up, and I just want to add just a bit of a bead. Try and do it so that it's attractive in there. that's how you fill the holes. Now, you look at that corner, that's the one with the 45. You look at that corner, that's the one with the butt joint. And I gotta tell you, the extra work just is not worth it. So, I will finish soldering this up, then I'll add rings. Well, thanks. You know, it's still a couple of months till Christmas time, but it's never too late to start thinking about your next project. And I think that Jeannie did a really nice job on this design. Okay, on this project, this window has already been soldered together, and the fellow that we built it for was going to put it in a window and then decided he wants to hang it. And so we need to add this metal, and we're going to put it over all of these places that have already been soldered. And so, you know, on your FID, you got this crazy head, and so this is what this is for. Of course, our people who do lead work would recognize this, but we don't do lead work. So you put it in here and you run along the zinc and you spread it open some, you see. Now I'm going to place this one. Remember my admonition to always place the, put your fingers around it. All right, now on this one, now you remember I said that you want to place another nail on the other side whenever you're doing this so that it doesn't go right around. If I didn't put another nail here, this window would pop out. So now, okay. Okay, now see, I've got a spot all the way along here, and so I'm going to place a nail near each one of these bevels. Okay, then I need to go here. Okay, I'd really have a problem here if I hadn't spread these first.
Aren't you afraid of?
What's that?
Aren't you afraid of hitting it?
No. I would hate to hit it this way, but to hit it sideways probably would be okay. Okay. Let's Now, let me grab a little piece right here and then just drive the metal right up to that edge. Do the same thing on this edge. See, so when I put the piece of metal along here, the corners will line up. All right, now one of the things I wanted to mention was that on occasion we have had, on a very rare occasion, we've had a piece that had 1/4 inch outer bar pull away from the window after it was all done and had been hanging for several months. And so recently we had one that we wanted to repair, and so what we did was we put a new 1/4 inch outer bar all the way around, and then I took an outside edged, made it even bigger, and went all the way around with an additional width of it, and so it was a 1/2 inch of metal. And then I after I got the 4 corners done, I just soldered one every 4 to 6 inches so that it was really strong. So I don't think that'll ever have any problem. Okay, now these windows have the zinc outer bar as their only framework. And that looks okay, but it doesn't look as good as this one has zinc outer bar, and then it has a framework. So on this side, we've framed it in such a way that pretty much the outer bar is covered, and then there's wood. And that's got a more finished look to it. Okay, now this one over here is built with a zinc framework, and then there is silicone put along it to filled in so there's no gap left. And so these two, when you see them with light coming in during bright sunlight, this just looks like a regular piece of the copper foil lead line, because when it's lit up, it's all black. It just looks dark. Now then, this one over here has the same kind of thing, and it's been darkened up so that it's got a pretty good patina on the window, and we don't intend to ever reframe this one. It just looks fine. And then I want to walk you over to, and this one has an oak frame, and if I was more brave, I would show you how we made it, because it's also got zinc outer bar all the way around it, but I built it in such a way that the window would slide in between the pieces. Now, we've talked about all of these different methods. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. If you like the information that I showed you here, click on the like, thumbs up button so that so that we can do better on YouTube. I hope that you're a subscriber to our videos. If you are, then you know what we're all about. If not, then go to our channel, Better Stained Glass, and find all of the videos that we've got. We've got right at 140 videos, something like that right now. And we try to teach as many, anything that comes into our minds about video, then we're all for it. We're all for teaching it. And we appreciate you being with us. See you again next Thursday.